I've got 7 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. If you'll stand with us. Ron, will you lead us in a word of prayer and please remain standing for the pledge?
May we pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings of life you've given us. Most of all, thank you for the blessing of Jesus Christ, our true Lord and Savior. Take away the sin of the world. If we just accept and believe, confess our sins and repent, we too can be saved. Help us, Lord. Give us the mind of Christ. Give us the ears to hear and the mouth to speak and the heart to feel others in this community. And help us, Lord, because we need your help and your divine guidance, because we have so many decisions to make tonight. We need you, Lord, more than ever. For in the blessed name of Jesus we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 1st meeting. You see them in your package. I hear a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse,
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Yes.
Councilmember Tutman,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes.
All right. Next item is the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions or subtractions for this?
Mayor, if it pleases the council, I would ask that the presentation of the year-end 2019 audit report be added as agenda item number 1. I would ask that item number 2, approval of resolutions regarding revenue bonds, the Thomaston Housing Authority, be tabled until a further time. And I would also ask that item number 6 be moved to number 2 to replace.
You've heard these changes. Do I hear a motion to accept this change?
Oh, and the police department.
Correct.
Okay. Item D, I will make a motion to make those changes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse,
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrooks,
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves,
Yes.
Councilmember Tutman,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean.
Yes.
All right, we move to item E, city attorney's report.
Nothing at this time.
All right. City clerk's report. Anything to report from the city engineer?
Not at this time, Mayor.
Move to item 8, city manager's report.
First item, I would invite Ms. Rashan, if she would please give council a presentation of our 2019 audit.
Where would you like me to stand? Where would you like me to?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Can everyone hear me if I'm here? Okay. So I mailed each of you your audit report. You should have received that in the mail because it was right when City Hall was shut down. So I put those in the mail to you. You did receive for the 18 audit report the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Excellence again. I think that's like the 34th year, so congratulations to Lonnie and Russell for making that happen. That's quite a record that you have. And if you have any questions in going through it, you can certainly call me and I'll be glad to answer them. But I was just going to go over some highlights with you that we do every year. So if you're looking on the first page, the change in the fund balance, this is just your general fund, not all your governmental funds, just the general fund that includes special revenue and other funds. You budgeted to have a decrease in your fund balance of about $642,000, but you actually had an increase of $191,000. So that was a variance of about $833,000. And that mainly came from your expenditures. There were just some expenditures in those departments that you did not spend that you had projected to, and maybe some hiring in the public safety department that you did not get to hire. So that's what caused that switch. So that's what caused that positive variance for you. In your proprietary funds, which is all of your utility funds combined, you had an increase in your net position in all three funds, water and sewer being the largest of $971,000. Your electric fund, $369,000, and then sanitation, $52,000. That's a typo there, but the total 2019 increase in your net position in your proprietary funds is $1.39 million. You used $691,000 of that to reduce your debt, and that's your revenue bonds, the DEPA debt, and a few other things in there. So if you turn to your second page, that's your 5-year comparison. Where we're really just looking at your working capital, and that's your current assets to be able to pay off your current liabilities. Your general fund, again, this is just the general fund and not your special revenue funds, not all the governmental funds. You can see that your working capital is up in 2019, and it's about where it was in 2015. So you continue to stay steady with little increases, but you're up substantially over 18 in working capital. In your proprietary funds, this is all the utility funds combined, you're down just a little, but you're still up over the past 5 years in your working capital. And then overall, the total working capital, you're up over the past 5 years substantially. And then if you go to your last page, that just shows your transfers to your general fund from your utility funds. From the electric fund, you transferred last year, in 19, $2.4 million. And that's greater than it was in 18, but still much less than it was in 15. So you can see your scan right there. And then in the water and sewer fund, what you transferred to the general fund, and then you had no transfers this year for 19 from the sanitation fund. So those are just some very general highlights. I always encourage you to read your notes, read the statistical tables in the back, because that gives you a good 10-year comparison of everything. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be glad to answer them now or at a later date. If anybody has any.
And Rashan, if council wants to sit down with you one-on-one, we can set those up and go over.
Anytime. Be glad to meet with them here, or they can come to our office. Be glad to go over anything that they have any questions about.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and thank you for allowing us to continue to do it. Our firm appreciates it very, very much. We're honored to do it. You're welcome.
All right.
Next item for council's consideration, discussion, or potential action regarding employee compensation, health care, and pension. You should have a copy of a handout that was provided that had a cover sheet for expenditures. This is an issue that was brought before council, I believe, a couple, mine looks a little bit different than yours, Jeff. The synopsis, like I said, this issue was brought before council a couple of meetings ago. We said that we would continue to watch finances, but it was requested that the item be placed back for consideration. So I just wanted to run back through what all was involved in the study. But before I do that, I would like to introduce Ms. Jennifer Sands. Jennifer, if you wouldn't mind standing up and saying hello. Ms. Jennifer is going to be our new Human Resources Director. And Ms. Becky Zeeby, who's been with us for 5-6 years now, 4 years now. His last day is going to be on the 23rd, and she is going to enjoy retirement. So Jennifer's done a good job helping Becky prepare some of this information tonight, and will help answer any questions that the City Council might have. But in brief, we looked at 3 different mechanisms with regards to our employee recruitment, retention, and attraction, those being health care costs or the provision of a subsidy for family medical coverage, increasing our pension multiplier from where it currently sits, and then modification to our salary and benefits, above and beyond what was appropriated, and it went into effect January. So from a healthcare cost standpoint, we did a survey, and what we wanted to do was gauge how many employees do or would take the option of family health coverage if it was offered. I don't remember the exact number. Jennifer, do you know the exact number in the survey, or maybe how many we had?
It was in the teens, it was like 15, 16 people.
15, 16. So
I
the
have to
number-
go back to my notes and look for sure, but
So the number you see before you, that's going to be a moving number depending upon the election that the employees actually have. So this was based off an 80% subsidy for family coverage, and we anticipated that cost to be just in excess of $76,000. Moving our pension multiplier from a dynamic rate point at a 1.2 up to a straight 1.75. The estimated cost for that was $212,000 and some change. And you should have a copy of a summation of the employees that the salary committee looked at that thought were kind of out of whack, that needed to be brought in line above what was appropriated in the January 1 budget. And that total employment cost was about $92,000 all in to make those changes. So it was asked to bring this back for council for your consideration this time. If you have any,
And if I may say, I guess it's here because you and I had talked
Correct.
and we had not voted it down, we had not done anything with it, but I do see here where it says possible wait until next year's budget, so if that's what, if that's what we want to do, that's fine. I just know we had not decided for or against it. So if we want to wait until we, start our budget season, then that's fine with me. I asked that question. I guess that's why I was here tonight, because I had asked the question. But if we want to wait until budget season, then that's fine with me too.
Rest of council, ideas? If we did it now, it would be a mid-budget, we'd have to appropriate funds and all, correct?
correct, ma'am. If council does have any other questions as we head into budget season, Lonnie, I think the budget sheets go out today, or are they going out tomorrow?
Yeah, the budget sheets went to department heads today. So we'll wait and get those back. I've asked for them to be back by the end of next week, so I have a week to prepare everything for Russell. And then he and I'll be on it by October the 1st.
we should also probably the next 2 weeks receive what our new pension cost will be. We will know whether or not our pension cost is going to go up for 2021. We should have that they've told us GMA within the next 2 weeks.
They give us an actuarial calculation of an anticipated contribution, and we try to build that into the budget. So, point being, we're heading up on our budget season. We'll bring this issue back to the forefront for council's consideration. So if there are any particular items or questions that you have for, Jennifer, myself, or Lonnie, we'll be glad to answer those as we head into the budget. And we will try to have at our first October meeting a budget schedule for the city council, so we can go and start those work sessions. All right, so the next item we have for council's consideration is the approval to an amendment to the cemetery ordinance. That should be attachment H1. The council will remember we had a request from a gentleman who was buried in section, I think it was H in Southview Cemetery, who wanted to place a marker. However, our current ordinance has a prohibition against that type of marker, except for a specific exemption for veterans. If you'll read on your handout 2 subsection A about midway down, it specifically says in section H, an additional exception shall be made to permit horizontal markers for any individual as to not limit it to veteran markers only. As council discussed, the intent was to make an allowance. However, that allowance should be consistent with the placement of markers that we allowed for veterans, and the ordinance modification goes into the specifications of what they can be, the width, the depth, the grade has to be flush with the ground. So if the city attorney has anything more to add, I'll allow her to do that, but as presented, staff's recommendation is to authorize and approve and enact the ordinance.
You've heard that recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
Motion. Support.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Brightfield.
Aye.
Councilmember Middlebrook.
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hand.
Yes.
The next item for council's consideration is discussion potential action concerning procedure of a previous vote, attorney general opinion, and other parliamentary processes. Was asked for a specific item to be placed on the agenda, and at this time I will yield to the city council.
That's what I don't understand what that's about.
Okay, this is my motion now. Mr. Mayor, may I speak?
Yes.
Okay, hello, my name is John Greathouse. I represent District Number 4, Thomaston, Georgia. Now, we're in tumultuous times in this country today. We got a lot of issues out there and all, and I'm concerned about some of these issues. And the issues that we're concerned with are, and let me read these issues. That, let's face it, for the last 2 years, we as the city council have spearheaded the Heart and Soul program. We have asked the community to give us their feedback. There were 42 different opportunities in person and online that asked the community what mattered to them. The program logged 2,817 different responses. 742 citizens responded to the final survey of the program. Now, the issue at hand, the Oily Government Complex, Oily High School, Confederate artifacts, etc., was never mentioned. Never once mentioned in any of these surveys. So that's just a polling of the community. Let me follow this up by saying that, I'm on the agenda to address the question involving State Law 50-3-1 and the city ordinances. I believe the city council was out of order according to the Roberts Rules and parliamentary procedure. Number 2, the improper in allowing a vote for an issue that was not on the agenda. Number 3, illegal by allowing Mayor Pro Tem Doug Head to participate in a vote on an issue that he has already had ethics complaints filed and pending against him. Number 4, the letter to the Attorney General is a public document that should be read, approved, and publicized. Again, the city council itself is not above the law. We must display integrity, ethical behavior, and follow proper procedures. Thank you.
What was that, I don't understand. What was the heart and soul? What does that have to do?
That was a preface to Heart and Soul conducted surveys. For 2 years, we spent $100,000 with the city and county to provide for this program. And this program surveyed every aspect of our community. And of all the priorities, and they went over, of all the priorities, not once was this mentioned as an issue with Oily, the artifacts that are here in the government complex, or whatnot. Not once was that mentioned of all the thousands of contacts and surveys reported. Each and every one here filled out a survey. How many of you mentioned that in your survey response? Did anyone here mention in survey response that they were opposed to Oily, the letters being on the government complex, the artifacts in the area, or anything else? And nothing was mentioned about relocating the city-county government complex or city-county government offices. I would just preface my remarks with that because we must have logistical information to deal with. We're numbers people, especially our bankers here. They're numbers people. Everything is about a profit margin. Everything is about the numbers. I was just expressing, my point of view utilizing this information.
Any other council members?
I'm kind of confused on what's going on with that. I don't understand.
You mentioned it during the time, heart and soul, or they were,
I don't understand what it
that
has to do with this here.
wasn't mentioned then.
What I'm saying, like,
Mentioned the heart and soul.
again, what I'm saying, that it was improper allowing a vote to take place on this issue.
Mayor, if it pleases the council, I handed council a copy, a handout that looks like this, headed 1 of 3 on the bottom. What this is a rule of procedure that the city has chosen to adopt some years ago with regards to the process for the decorum of the city council meeting. And it kind of goes through that process in terms of rules, the final of which is the adoption, I believe, of Robert's Rules of Order. I have looked. There's been some question as to how agenda items come to be on the agenda, how the agenda is finalized, and any subsequent modifications to the agenda once the meeting has started and the actual adoption has happened. So this is a good refresher course, and just for the edification of those viewing. The agenda is publicized to the media, and the notice given is living, breathing agenda that's not subject to its formal form until it comes before the council. It is presented and is adopted by the city council. Up until that time, it is subject to modification, change, tabling, deletion. Once that agenda has then been adopted and accepted by the council, it then becomes the official agenda. And doing a bit of research, it would appear that the agenda after that point can be modified, subject to Robert's Rules of Order, by a supermajority or a 2/3 majority of the governing board. And at any point in time, if there is an issue with the process, the code pretty well spells out that the mayor is in charge of the decorum and process of the council meetings. And that if there is an issue with that process or procedure, then a member of the city council has the right to appeal that, and then the city council would then vote on that appeal. Am I correct? Did I miss that?
You are correct. What we're looking at is the ordinance, specifically rule number 12 says the presiding officer shall decide all questions of order, but any member being dissatisfied with the decision may appeal to the city council in a manner prescribed by Robert's Rules of Order. And the Robert's Rules of Order says appeal of the decision for the assembly to decide must be made before other business is resumed. So the appeal has to be done at that time. It refers to Robert's Rules, and that's what Robert's Rules says.
And I'm not a professional on Robert's Rules. I had to do some fine-tuned reading, just to bring up the speed. So I would invite city council just to read through that, become familiar. If we need to have more informal or conversations, working groups, we'd be glad to roll through some of that. But I think for the general public, we do have a process, we have a procedure, it has been adopted. And if there is some tightening up that we need to do to follow that decorum with regards to adding items to the agenda or taking formal votes, we will continue to do our best job to make sure that happens. One of the other issues while we are on parliamentary process discussion is to just rehash or recap some of the separation of power issues that we have enumerated in our city charter. By our charter, the power that we were granted by the state of Georgia, this body is vested with the full governance of the city of Thomaston. Also within that charter, it specifies the powers that are enumerated to the city manager, one of which is, the appointment and removal of employees that are subject to the city manager's discretion in the day-to-day operations. And I bring that up, council does a really good job of talking to me about issues that they have within their districts, issues that need to be addressed. However, we do have certain situations and instances where employees tend to circumvent the chain of command and take issues directly to elected officials. And in some instances, that undermines the confidence of department directors, their subordinate, mid-management, the HR director, and the city manager. So we wanted to have a conversation with the city council that we do have a specific disciplinary action enumerated in our personnel policy and procedures specific to following the chain of command, and we will be enforcing that subsection of the personnel policy and procedures. So if employees do reach out or have questions about operational issues within departments, it would be my pleasure or my preference if you would, defer them to their appropriate department head director, and then if they can't get satisfaction to HR and then ultimately to the city manager. All that being said, notwithstanding, there are certain provisions in our personnel policy that allow for direct correspondence, to circumvent the chain. Those are Title 3?
Title III, which is our harassment.
Title III issues federal whistleblower protection, sexual harassment. But even in those instances, we have a chain of command. If I have a department head that's being accused of grievance, then it will default to the HR director. If the HR director is the one being accused, it would default to the city manager. If the city manager is the one being accused, then it would then default to the city council. So just wanted clarification that we will be enforcing that from a staff situation. So if you have employees reaching out to you about operational concerns, please give us the opportunity to remediate that before it becomes an issue. And with that, if there are any other questions of separation of powers, duties, process, procedures, or any clarification points that the council would like, the attorney, HR, would be more than happy to try to pull that information together.
Thank you. Go ahead. May I make one comment before you got into that aspect? All right, the reason for Robert's rules, the reason for an agenda, we publicize an agenda, we contact the local media, publicize our agenda, what we have, so we can make informed decisions as city council members, so we can research this information also. We're not caught flat-footed by someone making a motion at a city council meeting for some subject that has not been researched, that's not been developed, that, certain city council members may not be aware of was an issue. That is the reason why you say unofficial, well, I say it's official. Whatever we do as a city council, as government, is official. This is legal. And because of this is why we have an agenda. And we have an agenda, we place items on the agenda, we then speak of those items of the agenda. If we need work sessions, we conduct work sessions, which are public to the meeting. Nothing is held, no decisions are made behind closed doors. This is why we have Robert's rules. This is why we have an agenda, to make informed decisions. Thank you.
The only other item to clarify, because I know there's been lots of questions on people recusing themselves on a vote. That, in my interpretation, is up to the council person himself. I can't say, Ryan, you can't vote on this. I can ask for, do you think you should vote on this? But none of us can actually say, you've got to recuse yourself on it. Is that correct from our interpretation?
Yes.
My question there is, we have legal counsel. This legal counsel also advises us on the law here, which she is doing. So we can defer to the legal counsel as to what the present law is in regard to a certain member, whether it be a potential conflict, a direct conflict or whatnot, she interprets the law, or he interprets the law for us at that point in time. Again, this is nothing directed at any person, any personality at all with the city council. This is just a member, this is just a method and manner of law.
Like I said, it's not Russell's mind or to call out a recuse. It's, I mean, if you think it is, you can question and get some interpretation, but it's not for any of us to say, Christopher, vote. Ryan, you can't vote. It's, most of the time, Ryan or somebody's like, hey, I don't want to get in trouble, but I need to recuse myself of that. That's how it goes. But even if it's blatant conflict of interest, that council person could still vote on that issue.
I think a duly elected member of a body can vote until the day they leave office. If there is a question of ethics, then there is a cure for that, and that is enumerated in our code as part of the ethics process. And then there are certain measures that can be taken on the back end. But as far as circumventing the, democratic process to chill the vote, I think that each member has the right to vote until they leave office unless they recuse themselves for a conflict. And then there's a process to, address that if there's a perception issue by the body or the general public.
I think there can be a suggestion, maybe call it to their attention, but then it is up to them to recuse themselves.
Anyone else have anything else on this? Okay.
Next item for council's consideration is the authorized expenditure of a quiet bypass pump. Parentheses, the word quiet. We currently have 3 bypass pumps in our inventory. And what these are used for is when we have issues at lift stations, sewer lift stations. If they fail or if they falter, we have to bypass. It actually does the job of the lift station. And some of our lift stations are close to residential neighborhoods. And over the past couple of weeks, months, we've had some complaints. We do know we have a lift station that's in need of repair. We're currently working on easement acquisition to do that. But we thought it would be nice to have a bypass pump that is conducive to a residential setting, and that we have some that are currently loud. So we got a price, and staff's recommendation is to authorize the expenditure of a quiet bypass pump in the amount of $55,304 from Xylem. This is an eligible sales tax expenditure, so if council agrees, we will solicit the award of the purchase.
Maybe explain it a little bit more, I don't know that I would know.
All right,
You remember
part of,
we had one south of town, come in town, that was right by, in front of somebody's house for a long time. And it was loud and it would run all the time, and we finally fixed the issue, but it took a while to fix. But they had to deal with that loudness for months.
so a normal situation works when you flush the toilet. That water flows by gravity, okay, to a certain point by which gravity doesn't work anymore because of rock or grade or whatever. Then it has to be pumped or lifted up to an additional grade where it can then flow by gravity. When those stations go out, if that pump's not working, it builds up and we have a spill. Well, we can't have a spill, so we have to go in and bypass that lift station. And we have pumps that do that, but the pumps we currently have, they're not conducive for residential neighborhoods. Like when they kick on, they're really loud. So if you're living by one of those pumps, you hear it, and it's more of a noise pollution issue. So we've had a couple of complaints, so I would appreciate if council would consider the expenditure so that we have one that is more quiet and conducive to residential neighborhoods. Staff's recommendation is to authorize the expenditure $55,304 to be pulled from sales tax for a quiet bypass from Xylem.
Motion to approve.
That's second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Councilmember Greathouse.
All right,
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Councilmember Kane.
Yes.
The next item we have for council's consideration is the adoption of a fee schedule for permitting and plan review. If you remember a couple of meetings back, council authorized the execution of a contract pending legal confirmation with Charles Abbottson Associates, who are going to do our residential, commercial, and industrial plan review and building inspection. I can't tell you the last time that our fee schedule was updated, and I can tell you the benefits of the new schedule. You have 2 pages, it's H5, your attachment, there's some highlight on it, it looks kind of like this. There's some permitting fees in here, everything to the left is a new recommendation, and then as you flow to the right, you'll see a highlight, a column tabbed current charges and then new charges for a comparison basis. The page that has followed that, you'll see a table that looks kind of like this. This is a table that is produced by the International Code Council. So everything we do permitting wise, if council so agrees to move forward with this, will be based on a predetermined cost per square foot calculation. Now that calculation changes every 6 months by the International Code Council, and this table will be replaced. So for council's edification, you have 1A, 1B, 1A, 1B, 2A, and on to the right. That is indicative of construction type and methodology, whether it's a stick-built structure, whether it's a CMU structure, whether it's a steel structure, what type of roof it has, and depending upon that chart in the International Code Council, I believe it's in Chapter 6, indicates, which one of these calculations. But for your typical house that is being built, and again, this is only for new construction, that would be a R3, residential 1, VB. So that is, what is that, $112.76. So what you would do is you would take the square footage of what they're going to build, and you would multiply it by that cost per square foot. That gives you your valuation. Then you go over to your valuation table, and depending upon that valuation, it tells you how much your permit fee costs. So this is an update, GMA approved, sponsored by the International Code Council, and brings us into 2020. It is a fee schedule that has been vetted by our code enforcement official, by our consulting group, and they tell us that it is consistent with our surrounding areas, and it is their recommendation to approve this fee schedule, and is also staff's recommendation to council that we approve this fee schedule.
You heard the recommendation. Your motion?
I'll make a motion.
Your second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Councilmember Greathouse.
all right.
Councilman Middlebrooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Reed.
Yes.
Councilmember Tucker.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayes.
Yes.
That is all the business that I have that is.
May I revisit my issue that's going on with Mr. Mayor?
Get that back.
May I revisit my issue?
Would be, I guess going by law, rule, order would be, is okay, unanimous consent of the council. Is that right? Is it all right with the council?
May I just revisit my issue?
Everybody fine with that?
My motion, I'm sorry, my agenda item was discussion of potential action for this, and the total, the backbone of what I was trying to say is, we need to have a legal vote here. That was what the vote was. I thought the vote was improper because it was not on the agenda, it was not appropriately addressed. A motion was made, a second was made, we were voting, and we didn't really know we were voting for. So I just want to re-vote. I want us to vote again for that issue.
Revote.
I knew what I was voting for.
What is it?
Okay, well, I make a motion that we vote again on that issue.
I I'm asking what issue is it you're talking about?
The issue we voted for before in regard to sending a letter to the Attorney General's office in the face of the fact that we were looking at the state law that was plain on its face that had been improved, by the legislature and approved by the courts. We were actually appealing a decision, a state law, without going to court and following the proper judicial process to appeal that statement. I'm just asking us to revote. Making a motion for that, for a revote.
There's a motion on the floor to revote on the item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, if we call for a vote.
Councilman Greenhouse,
I vote no on sending the letter to the Attorney General for the Attorney General's opinion on a state law that's plain and clear.
Councilman Middlebrooks,
I vote no on revote.
The motion, make sure, to clarify,
Can you read back the motion?
read back the motion.
the motion was to ask to revote about sending the letter requesting the Attorney General an opinion on the state law DP.
We're voting on
Whether to vote.
whether to vote, okay. My bad.
Whether to revote.
Whether to revote. This is not the revote, this is a vote to make a revote. If that makes sense.
Double nay.
Something like that. So, I get, your vote is to revote, correct?
My vote is to revote.
Okay. So,
I vote no.
Jeff was no,
Double nay.
Councilman Reed?
No.
No, not to revote.
No.
Councilmember Tucker?
Yes.
Councilmember Head?
No.
Is Councilmember Head allowed to participate in this vote?
It
I'm asking my legal advice from
It
legal
is,
counsel.
it is his choice to recuse himself. There can be a suggestion that he not vote, but there's no way for anybody to tell him he can't vote on it. If we're looking at the ethics complaint that was in place at the time we were here last time and this issue was voted on, it's not the exact issue that's before the ethics committee. This was a request to get a second opinion, so it's different than what that ethics committee issue they were looking at. But again,
it falls on,
it falls on Councilman Head whether he sustains or not.
you're good with voting?
Absolutely.
Mayor, the only other business I have before the council is just general information. This is a letter, and I've printed you all out a copy that we received from the Department of Community Affairs. And there is a portion of the city of Thomaston, formerly an application known as the Silvertown Historic District, which is being considered for addition to the National Registry. If you see a page look like this, and it's headed with summary of proposed National Register, Georgia registration nomination, it will give you a brief description of the actual district. Just in paraphrasing, it's a 407-acre tract along both sides of Highway 19, bound by O Street, S Street to the west, R Street, Deluxe Circle. But to make it easier, if you flip to the back of that descriptive page, it'll actually give you a map that's indicating what the district will look like. And in this letter, it says that if anyone would like to have comment that is impacted by this designation, that they have to submit those comments no later than November the 4th, for a November the 6th virtual meeting, I think, where they'll take it up for consideration. I don't have any more details than that, but you can see it's very descriptive, who sponsored it, the motion. It kind of tells what you can do, what you can't do. I would like to invite, I talked to one of the preparers of to help the sponsor with the application with the state. She has a contact with the State Preservation Commission. If it pleases the council at the next meeting, I would like for that person to be able to either Zoom in or use our communication device to get in, so that if city council has any questions about this nomination or any of the effects that it will have for the city, or any questions that you anticipate you would get from any of your citizens, that we be able to ask that person in the meeting. So if it's okay with the council, I will set that up. And in the interim, if you want to read it, if you have any additional or specific questions you want me to try to find an answer out to, or any other general information, I'll be glad to provide it.
There's an additional private property that was
Yes.
on there as well.
Yes.
Is this something that's available online, that is put on our website so people could read?
We can do that, Mayor.
Okay, so, especially some of the residents and those, they want to look at it. Let's see. Is there any other business?
One more clarification point we brought to the council, I believe, a couple of meetings back, the transfer of property to Standard Mill, Standard Textile. If you recall, we had a water tank issue and a fire suppression issue between Standard Textile and Thomaston Mills. We got all that worked out. Thomaston Mills and Standard Textile are working in unison. They have an agreement. The property has been sold, the check has been sent, and the deed has been recorded.
Well done.
That's all.
There's no other business. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye, we'll go home.
Yeah.